In this video, we're going to look at an area that's talked about a lot, and that's the central area and your split step in terms of your footwork and how you move from the middle of the court. Now, I think the main things to consider is that different players have different preferences. So one split step that works for someone doesn't work for another player. So it's about finding what is the perfect way for you to move from the middle of the court. Now, a split step, when you break it down, is basically about how you can react to a shot as your opponent hits it, and how you can propel yourself or push yourself off in the quickest way to go and get to the ball wherever it's gone. So you need to be able to change direction with it. You need to be able to be ready to move in any direction when your opponent hits. You need to be able to react as your opponent hits, so you need to be positioned so you can see them as well as you possibly can. And then at the point of hitting, you almost need to use the floor as a way to push off and to get you moving to the ball as quickly as you possibly can. Now, as I said, it very much depends on what your preference is. You get some people that love to position themselves as very tall through this central area, where they'll be on the balls of their feet and they'll be very tall through the middle looking for the volleys. So if you think about two very similar players in terms of male and female, Laura Massaro and Nick Matthew would talk a lot about being very tall through this middle area. They want to be up here, they want to be volleying the ball. You might get someone else like Gregory Gaultier, who wouldn't be so tall through the middle. He'd be slightly more squat, or Gina Kennedy, who's just broken into the top 10. She's very powerful and more squat. Camille Serme, quite squat through the middle area of the court. So their position wouldn't be quite as tall, they'd be slightly more into the legs. And that just happens to work for them. Again, you see players like Joel Makin, he's also quite strong and squat, and his position and gravity will be slightly lower than some of those taller players that we've spoken about. The other thing to think about is your build and how you move. You might have some players who are very explosive and powerful, and we already mentioned Gaultier. He actually positions himself very solid and strong without much movement, and he backs himself to be powerful enough and fast enough from this central area to fire off to go and get a ball. Equally, you might have someone, and we talk about the greats of the game, Amr Shabana, who actually times his movement through the middle. So he gets off his shot, and when he's coming through the middle, he keeps some kind of motion going on. And Kareem Abdul-Gawad is the same. They have that flow and motion through the middle of the court, where they can then keep that momentum and then change directions and go wherever they need to and push off in the different directions. The other thing to think about is how you watch your opponent. So when you're standing in the middle of the court initially, you need to think about where your opponent's moving from, where the ball is, and how easily you can see what's going on. So it's about finding the position that allows you to see what's going on, but also allows you to turn in either direction so that you're not leaving yourself vulnerable to one side or the other. You have to be ready to cover all directions. You need to be able to move to the back, to the middle, to the front. You need to be able to turn from one side to the other side. So it's about twisting and turning, and it's about being as dynamic as you can. Now, I think the best way to think about this is how can you get yourself comfortable, or how can you take up and discover your best position? And what you need to think about is your natural preferences. So for me, for example, I found it very hard to move into the front of the court. So when I was coming through the middle of the court, it was pointless me getting stuck on my heels or being back in my legs, because I just wouldn't get forwards and cover the boast or the drop as well as I needed to. I was far more comfortable going backwards to the back of the court, so I could get to the back of the court a lot easier. Now, with that in mind, as I was coming through, I needed to have some kind of small forward motion happening that was almost giving me a bit of a head start to get into the front. And then from there, as I was creeping forward, I could then push off and carry on that momentum into the front corner. And you'll see some players, that will just get that timing through the middle, and then they'll zoom forwards into the front. And then you'll get other players that are very, very lateral in the way they play, and they'll actually position themselves quite solidly through the middle. And then you might see them volleying quite well because they hold their position and they stay strong. But it's about discovering your natural stance. So where are your feet comfortable, is in shoulder width apart. Do you prefer being tall through the middle? And does that allow you to sort of get to the shots quicker? Are you a player that's slightly more squat? Are you powerful and explode off and being able to change direction and push in any of the different directions that you need to go? Or do you need that rhythm and flow as you're coming through the middle so that you then time it and arrive and then move? And you always have to position yourself in a way that allows yourself to see your opponent and have as much sort of awareness of where the ball is and where the space is on the courts. Hopefully that gives you a lot to think about in terms of your positioning in the middle, and then from there you can work out what's best for you and how you can actually cover every shot in every direction as efficiently and effectively as possible when you play.